Yeah, we're a little bit past our normal start time.
Time is money.
Time is money. Let's get the show on the road here. I think I'll go ahead and start with our opening prayer. True God, Jehovah of armies, God of the Bible, champion of truth and justice in the universe, please send your angels with your Holy Spirit. Please keep us humble and respectful of each other so that we can build consensus about how to advance your kingdom of truth and justice on this earth. Know how critically important it is that we all work together in humble and respectful manners so that we can accomplish jointly and more powerfully by working together our ultimate goals of establishing truth and justice on this earth and to build solid community like your precious son, Jesus, Yeshua, did 2,000 years ago. And may we be worthy to follow on with the same righteous work that he did back then. And in his precious name we humbly pray these things. Amen. Okay. It looks like we lost Michael again. Carrying on. Welcome to our Supreme Court of Law's dedicated right-wing organizing conference. Agenda item 2B. Any new cases to be placed on the docket for adjudication of our Supreme Court of Law. Gary or Paul, do you have any cases you'd like to put on our docket here?
No, I don't have no cases at this time.
All right.
Or do I?
Okay. Slowly moving through our agenda. How about new agenda items to be placed on the agenda of our next conference? Either of you? Hearing nothing.
Well, I can try to do more on that war powers.
All right, well, that's a big one because that shows the emergency war power situation that we're under, and probably 90% of our American people and probably over 50% of our patriot community don't comprehend that our Constitution is basically null and void right now because of those emergency war powers. Isn't that right, Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big problem. Most of our patriot community don't comprehend clearly. We got serious problems. We can't argue constitutional principles in the de facto courts because we're basically under military rule right now, and judges have clearly said frequently that you can't argue the Constitution in their courtroom because, in essence, they're under a military tribunal mandate, and that's why things are still running the way they are. Isn't that the way it's going, Gary?
Yeah, it's like they say, you got to pick one or the other. They don't work together.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why we got to do some grassroots organizing anyway. But we'll get to that probably in more detail in your presentation a little bit later here in our agenda here. Agenda item 2C. And it does look like Michael's bouncing back and forth in and out. I don't know what's wrong. He must be having trouble getting in. But progress in gathering signatures on our oath of office documents or our jury verdict documents or any other documents like that. Do either Paul or Gary have have any progress on gathering signatures on any of those documents, either of you?
No, I haven't had a chance to even try.
Okay. Well, one step at a time. I'm kind of multitasking right now. People are phone texting me because they don't read their emails, and they want me to break away after I'm in conference here, trying to host the conference to babysit them. Nikki's coming in. There we are. Hello, Nikki. Welcome. And Michael's still trying to get in. And I am going through our agenda here. Okay. Agenda item 2D is our coronavirus complaint, a list of cases pending before our court. And we've got 6 of them so far, but the number one is our coronavirus military police state overreaction and treason complaint. And in the agenda items there, we've got 2 documents that show web links to the complaint and the partial juror's verdict. And we are trying to seek more signatures on our jury verdict for this important case, because not only of the importance of this issue about the lies coming through about the coronavirus, but also because of this complaint and model jury verdict serves as templates for other cases that people can bring before our court. So if you review this case and these documents, then you can see how basically to construct complaints and jury verdict documents for other cases that litigants are interested in. Yes. So to return here, Nikki, welcome again. And still, Michael's having trouble getting in. I don't know what's wrong with his connection here. But I guess we'll proceed on. He was in twice here. He should be able to get in again. And at this point, the case under 2D, Section 2.21, election fraud conspiracy and obstruction of access to grand jury complaint, joint plaintiffs Michael Zarzano and Paul Nally. At this point, it seems like Michael is having trouble getting in, but I guess that means that you're up and we're ready to get a summary of what good work you're doing there, Paul, with your complaint and especially your efforts with the grand jury. Would you like to take the ball and give us an introduction of the progress you're making there, Paul?
Thank you, and I will try to keep this brief. The federal grand jury petition still has not been delivered to the grand jury. The United States Attorney is holding it. I did send a letter of complaint to the United States Department of Justice, to the head of the U.S. DOJ, and I've heard nothing from them. Now, in the interim time, of course, Michael and his group there in Florida have managed to place the petition that we did on the website, and they have it done in such a way so that if anybody reads it and would like to mail their own petition, they can go right below the petition where it shows the petition on there. They can fill in their information, and it will fill out the proper places on that petition, and they can print it off and mail it. I understand that they're also using that petition as a template for other states. So folks from Arizona or Ohio or Michigan, Wisconsin, they can find their states a petition that is relative to their state and mail it in. Now, a little something has happened. Several years ago, a gentleman down south of Atlanta had a problem with his grandchild being literally kidnapped by the Department of Family and Children's Services. And this was 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago. And he got in touch with me through a mutual friend, and I tried to help him with his situation. And eventually I explained to him that a grand jury, if he could get to a grand jury in Georgia, a grand jury would be the way to go. So this past September, I typed up a petition to his county grand jury and sent it to him for him to modify and edit as he saw fit, and then try to get it submitted. Well, lo and behold, the clerk down there was kind enough to see that he got a list of the grand jurors. And one of them was a lawyer in Griffin, Georgia. So they took off, and he and a friend took off and went down personally and served the foreman with the petition to the grand jury. Another fortuitous incident was that his neighbor across the street was also a grand juror, sworn grand juror. So he goes over and pays him a visit. Well, he got a letter Wednesday, I believe it was, of this past week, and that letter was from the foreman of the grand jury informing him that because of the closeness of their term being over and the COVID mess, that his grand jury would not be reconvened to hear his petition. However, he had met with the district attorney in that county, who, by the way, was just recently elected back in February at a special election, and they had come to an agreement that his petition would be heard by the March term grand jury.
Yeah.
And I understand that, according to the letter, I think it was March 10th, which is Wednesday, I believe, when the grand jury will convene. So we are expecting within a week of their convening to get some word from that grand jury of a date and time certain when his case will be heard. And he has asked me to assist him in the presentation of that case, which I'm going to do, because I will also be able to lay the petition to the federal grand jury matter in the hands of that grand jury and let them do a criminal inquiry upon the person of the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia for violation of federal and state civil rights. So that is where we stand right now, and I guess I will yield.
Thank you, Paul. That's a good summary. That sounds like we're making some good progress.
Now, I will. I'm sorry. Now, Charles, now see there, you let me forget again.
I'm sorry, Paul.
You know how old I am, and you know I'm forgetful. I will add this. It has occurred to me that the Supreme Court of Law does have the absolute constitutional and statutory authority to charge every sitting federal grand jury in this nation. It is a function of your First Amendment rights of remonstrance, petition, speech, and peaceful assembly. All of those bear upon the jurisdiction and the authority of the Supreme Court of Law's existence. So I am trying to put together a charge to the federal grand juries from the Supreme Court of Law, and now you'll have to excuse me because I don't know who your judges are, who's been elected as judges of the court, or how many there are, but I will need to get that information to add to this document. And I hope to have that thing done by the end of this week. And if I do, then I will probably be submitting it as an agenda item and publishing it to or I'll send it to you, and you can publish it wherever you believe it necessary for any of the judges to read and to sign off on, and then a copy can be sent to every federal grand jury in this nation and our insular possessions also, Guam and Puerto Rico and the others.
Yeah.
Anyway, now I can yield. I think I've covered all the bases.
That sounds good. Michael said that he's having trouble getting in, and he's in his wife's account, Cindy Lou Who. Michael, are you coming through Cindy's account there? I don't hear you, Michael.
He must
you got a mute on? There. Michael? Still can't hear you. Well, I don't know what we're going to do.
He can let us know as soon as he's able to get in.
Yeah. Well. Yeah,
okay, here I am.
There you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not used to using her phone. What was it you were asking?
Mike, that don't look like the mugshot I've seen on the post office wall.
Yeah. Your appearance has sure gotten a whole lot better looking there, Michael.
I've been out in the sun. Yeah, we've got some bad news out in Arizona today. It's really kind of shocking what is happening. I have a 1 minute long report I'd like to play from on the ground out in Maricopa County. Would you permit me to play it?
Yes. We're a small group here. We can take liberties with our agenda. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, here we go.
More strange happenings in Maricopa, Arizona. Over the weekend, a team went out to the building where the tabulation center is located. That's the voting tabulation center. They went around to the back of the building and found the warehouse door open where anyone could have entered. Inside was stacks of boxes on the shelves. These boxes looked like the ones that were seen that contained ballots. Then they looked inside the dumpster located outside the back door. They found a bag in the dumpster, and when they looked inside, they found shredded paper. So they took the bag home and started piecing together the shredded paper. You can see from the photo that the pieces, when put together, look like the ballots from the 2020 election. We contacted every elected official we could find, but no one had any answers. But Representative Mark Fincham sent out a statement saying, "We are awaiting confirmation that the shredded ballots found on Friday at the Maricopa County Tabulation and Election Centers are 2020 ballots. If they are, this will be the most outrageous, most disgusting thing I have witnessed while serving in the House of Representatives. The destruction of ballots and interference with the Senate subpoenas may validate the premise that there was significant fraud in our election." Representative Mark Fincham, Arizona Legislative District 11.
Well, there you have
Wow.
it, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not sure what's going on out there now, but that don't sound too good.
It sounds criminal.
I'll tell you, if I may, Michael.
Oh.
Yes.
A federal grand jury can take a look at that incident if the ballots cannot be produced and there is evidence that those ballots that were shredded were 2020 ballots. A federal grand jury can void the entire election results from the state.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would that impact the current presidency there, Paul?
Well, it would cost Joe Biden some votes.
Well,
I think they had 11 elector votes.
Wait a minute. Not only that, but it is theoretically possible, as a matter of law, that grand jury, a federal grand jury in Arizona, could invalidate based upon that fraud, could invalidate the entire election process nationwide. They could declare that by virtue of fraud being involved, that the void election has created a vacancy in the offices of the president and vice president, and they could further order or cause an order to issue that the prior holders of those offices resume their positions and remain there until such time as their successors in office are duly and legally elected.
yeah. Well, I'm with you with your first two steps. I really don't think that we need to be going back to Mr. Trump. I think Mr. Trump sold us out here. But we definitely need process to be invoked for removing Mr. Biden, because he's obviously he's the source. The people around him that are controlling him are the source of why those ballots probably got shredded.
If I may, Charles.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
There is a separate legal issue that can remove Joe Biden, and that is his commission of extortion while he was in the Ukraine involving public U.S. money or public money.
I agree. And there's probably about a dozen other crimes the guy's been involved in that if we could get real due process of law running, we could find him guilty of also.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy's not qualified to be leader of the most powerful nation on earth. But at that point, we would have to find somebody that is competent and is not going to sell us out like Trump did to fill the vacant office. And just a thought, Paul, could we combine the powers of a trial jury with the powers of a grand jury to just move forward with one entity that it has all the powers to do everything?
Yes, the grand jury has all the power it needs.
Well, can we combine it then with a trial jury and go ahead and assemble 12 grand jurors to issue a trial jury verdict?
Well, yeah, they would. They most certainly would issue a. They would not issue a verdict. What they would issue is called a special presentment.
Well, then you're saying that we can't combine a grand jury with a trial jury, because a trial jury can issue a final judgment and a verdict, right?
that does not necessarily preclude a grand jury in a very specific legal setting from issuing a final verdict.
Okay.
And that final verdict comes when what you need to understand is this, that those grand jurors are sitting as judges of a court of inquiry. Now, they only need to go to the level of probable cause to believe. However, if the evidence is so overwhelming that they reach the level of beyond a reasonable doubt, then in their judicial capacity, they can issue a final order.
Could that be also referred to as a final judgment and a juror's verdict?
Yes, that would be, yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. That would be a final judgment, and it would be a final jury judgment.
Well, now we're cooking with gas. Now we're really making progress, because if we can work like that and combine the powers of a grand jury with the powers of a trial jury, then our days of arguing about trial jury versus grand jury are over, and we don't have to, we can use either terminology, but we can move forward with the more powerful process that both of us perceive, and it don't matter what we call it. Does that sound right?
Basically, you're correct. Now, keep in mind, this does not apply in every instance. This is a very particular case, a very unique case that they will be engaged in. So this is one, as a matter of fact, now that I think back on it, I don't believe that a grand jury has ever done this before. But they do have that. They do have the scope of their power is so broad that they have all of the authority of law they need to do this case that way. Now, they'll have to be particular about their procedures. I mean, they'll have to be very particular. They'll have to understand when they go from a fact-finding body to an adjudicatory body. But as long as they pay attention to the P's and Q's, they could, a grand jury, one federal grand jury could pull this off. Probably I would recommend that they do that with the assistance of several other federal grand juries, assisting them fact-finding portion of their investigation.
Lots of potential there.
You see, that is not unlike a what am I trying to say? Magistrate judge, a magistrate court. That their power, the magistrate court is a good example of what can happen, and that applies when a magistrate judge hears testimony and sees evidence, and then weighs all of that and reaches a probable cause determination, and then he transfers that probable cause over to a final judgment, and it's an issuance of a warrant for arrest.
Are you saying? I don't believe that final judgment is necessary before a warrant of arrest can be issued. I think they only have to have probable cause. Isn't that true?
Yes, probable cause, but probable cause results in a warrant for arrest, and there's only ways to get out from under a warrant from a warrant. A warrant for arrest is appealable. It is a final order that is subject to appeal. But the way the appellate process works is that the first appeal is to a grand jury. They make the final determination of probable cause. But you don't have to wait for your case to be transferred up to a grand jury. You can take a warrant for your arrest, go get booked in at the jail, make bond, get out, and file an appeal with in our case, with the Georgia Court of Appeals. If you can prove a legal basis that would invalidate the issuance of the warrant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we should probably table our in-depth discussion of the process there. Michael, do you have more follow-up on the implications of what's going on in Arizona there? Michael, are you still with us?
Did we lose him again?
Well, his wife's account is still open. There we are. Michael, are you here? Well,
he may have got an incoming call he had to take.
Well, something.
What's going on in Nevada?
Well, yeah, I guess. Gary, do you got any updates on us for what's going on in Nevada?
Well, regarding Chris's case, I haven't heard.
Yeah, I was hoping Chris would be here. I texted him. I know he's been working hard on it, but you haven't heard anything from him, huh, Gary?
No. In fact, I'm trying to replace myself on my radio show so I can have more time to do other things. So, trying to get a young female in there. Maybe it'll bring in more people. But I'd like to say, I emailed you a few, about 3 different items from Douglas Joseph.
Yeah, I saw those.
And you can share those around. I think especially the United States Postal Service letter is real good. Then there's that I think it's a 16-page deal on birth certificate fraud from the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General, birth certificate fraud. June Gibbs Brown, Inspector General. And then he's got the public law here, too. It goes on about birthright citizenship. I saw there was 3 I sent you, and you can forward them out to the other people.
Well, I saw the one about the post office and the mask mandate. The post office allows people to not comply with the mask mandate. But and the second one was the admission of Hawaii to the Union.
Okay, that was on the public law. I didn't send you the birth certificate fraud documents.
Well, not today. You may have sent something previously, but
you might want to check. Otherwise, let me know and I'll send you another one again.
All right. But I guess that's good updates from Nevada generally. We do have you on the agenda here to talk a little bit later about the emergency war powers and the civil municipal war and everything that went on there. Let's kind of proceed here with the agenda and try to make sure our ducks are lined up here, Gary, and I'll pull you in probably here in a few moments to talk about the emergency war powers, if that's good.
No problem.
All right. So, getting back to our agenda here. Massive court. we got somebody.
Yeah, if I may, it's Michael in Florida.
Yeah, Michael. Good. You're back.
Yeah, just having a little difficulty here with this other phone I've never used before. I apologize.
All right.
The situation with the Arizona is pretty fluid. You know, it could change within the hour. Who knows? But the people out there are really invigorated, and they are very organized and on fire, and they're determined to get remedy in this situation. Now, this morning, and actually on Saturday, I had a call with the brother of Michael Flynn. He lives here right in my neighborhood. And they are both taking a look at Paul Nally's petition for a grand jury, and I'm hoping that they're going to come back with an answer to sign it and to sign the one here in Florida. So that'll be pretty good if we can get General Michael Flynn, to sign our grand jury petition. So that's kind of an ongoing situation. I should be hearing back by Friday from Joe. So just want to let you know about that.
Thank you, Michael. That sounds very powerful. Did you hear discussion between myself and Paul here that our differences between grand jury and trial jury are, at least in regard to this case, Paul has agreed that the grand jury has so much power that it's got the liberty to merge with the trial jury process. If I understood Paul correctly, and at that point, yes, we would have immense power to start doing some real serious progress with what's developing there in Arizona, I believe.
Well, there have been several instances in history where a grand jury has done just that. In New York, back in the late 1800s, it was a grand jury that broke up the racket of the Boss Tweed criminal enterprise in Tammany Hall. That's a very well-known case, and there are several. I have two articles, lengthy. One's about 67 pages. The other is about 27 pages. They're both listed on the website, and they're a thorough, comprehensive investigation into the how, what, why, and when of the grand jury function in history. And I think it would give great help to everyone involved on this call if you were to print those off and make a hard copy for yourself and study them. The one article is called Our Last Civilized Weapon of Choice, the Grand Jury. The other is Resurrecting the Grand Jury. And that's by a group of professors out of the University of Dayton, which they're activist professors geared up for the promotion of reinvigorating the grand jury. That's their whole idea in writing that. So both of those can be found on countycongress.com. They're on the front page, the slideshow. Just tap the arrows, and when you get to the selected article, just click it on, and it's a PDF, and it's downloadable, and they're both great articles. It would give you a lot of understanding regarding the grand jury. That's all.
Is one of those by Mr. Root?
Yeah, the other one is by Roger Root of Crichton Law.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
And he gives several instances in history where grand juries have been used, and so does the other article. So.
Right. As I've articulated before, I've got problems with grand juries, but I'm feeling really good about Paul's recent concession here that we can merge what I believe is the more powerful trial jury with what Paul believes and you believe is the more powerful grand jury, and we can merge them together as a single assembly to accomplish justice and arriving eventually at a final judgment and an ability to issue court orders. And if we can have that kind of power at our fingertips, then I can be way, way, way more enthused about working with y'all in this grand jury agenda here that you're talking about. And it does sound like the Arizona case is a splendid opportunity. The first thought was jumping into my mind is trial jury / grand jury should immediately issue arrest warrants for whoever is responsible for those ballots. They should be arrested, and we should consider some type of serious pains and penalties against those people to set a public example that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated. I yield.
I concur with that assessment.
Thank you, Paul. I think we had a new person arrive here a little bit ago. Anybody would like to say hi and introduce themselves here?
Brother Shorty.
Shorty, you made it in.
Yeah, I finally figured out how to do that.
All right. We got a good, healthy discussion here going. Did you hear about the situation in Arizona where apparently they've been shredding ballots on the recent election?
No.
Okay.
But I will say that we had some new stuff here in this greater St. Louis, Missouri area where 31 judges recused themselves from the criminal activity that they were involved in family rights issues.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right. We're trying to take the bull by the horn and run. It's called Mob Action Exposed CPS cases. And with that, we are discussing fraud upon the court action under color of law policies, that they have. And so we're taking the bull by the horn and we're running with it, Kidnapping in the first degree and the second degree, parental interference in the first degree and the second degree, falsifying certifications in the first degree and the second degree. I got at least a 21-count indictment against Morgan County, Alabama. Plus, I got a counterclaim, and I got the articles of fraud. And with the old case, when I got involved in it, the judge says, "Well, we don't have any standing with this. Case is over. Go home. We got your kid. Be happy." And so I issued an order to vacate her orders up to 6. And on the 7th order, I issued an order to vacate, plus I issued an order for her to recuse herself. And so she did. And then they gave us a new judge, and the new judge gave her...
Shorty, you're on the agenda to present your summary of your case here a little bit later. Can we kind of keep continuity with the flow of discussion in our agenda here for a little while?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And did you described the name of a group you're working with? Sounded like, huh?
Well, I'm the founder and the leader of the group called FAR Defense Alliance, and FAR is FAR, which is short for Families at Risk. Okay, and then I'm the leader of the Seeking Justice Resource Community.
Yeah.
And so between the two of them, I'm trying to make headway. So I'll let whoever needs to have a mic has a mic.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're tuning in with our conferences here. But we were focused on grand juries and trial juries and the current voting fraud all across the USA, and the issue of what we're going to do about what's going on in Arizona, where apparently there's evidence directly from, it sounds like a state representative or something, that found a box of shredded ballots or a bag of shredded ballots in the dumpster or something there in Maricopa County, Arizona. Is that correct, Michael? Michael, are you there?
If I understood him correctly, that does sound like a succinct explanation of what's going on.
Thank you, Paul. Well, I guess we should revert back to our agenda here. Yes, I guess we're completed for our introduction of the grand jury and the election fraud conspiracy stuff, at least for the time being. And David Scheid's not with us. He's 2D, subsection 3. He's got one of the court cases before us, but he's not here to explain his court case. So moving on, mortgage foreclosure and criminal theft. There is some mortgage foreclosure people that I've invited here, and Cynthia Moore is the particular case that we were talking about. I don't see Cynthia or any mortgage people. Cynthia, are you here, or is anybody here to talk about mortgages?
May I?
Hearing none. Moving on from agenda item. Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I've been trying to get your attention, and you're not hearing me or something.
Oh, we're not.
Yeah, this is the first time I heard you.
Okay. You were asking me a question a little bit ago, and I forgive me for the troubles I'm having, but this won't happen again. What were you asking me?
Well, just kind of trying to pull together a summary of the shredded ballots there in Maricopa County, and Paul's suggestion that we've got a more powerful grand jury, trial jury strategy here that might be brought to bear to help remedy the whole situation. Did you have any further summary or comments or questions on bringing all that into a nice tight focus for us?
Well, that is the truth. I mean, if a grand jury was able to break up the Tammany Hall racket of Boss Tweed in New York City, then it's got a lot of power. And I think people need to get a better understanding to the authority and power of the grand jury. I think we have been, as the American people, for a long time, we have had this weapon denied us, and it's been covered up, and we need to uncover it and figure out how to use it, how to wield it as a weapon. It was given to us by the founders as a weapon and a shield.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, as a result of the really enjoyable discussion Paul and I have had here thus far, it's sounding to me, and I'm putting together words in my mind to reformat my sentence structure. It sounds like Paul is saying that the grand jury has so much power that they can just declare that they are taking their own initiative. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the grand jury has the authority, probably on their own initiative, from what I understand Paul saying, to reformat itself as a trial jury and go ahead based upon the evidence. If instead of just probable cause, they all of a sudden realize that before their tribunal they've got proof beyond a reasonable doubt that crimes have been committed, then they could go ahead and issue a final judgment and start imposing sentences and orders and things like that. Does that sound right, Paul?
Yeah, what's important to understand is that from the common law into Article 5, the grand jury was brought in and put in our positive law fully clothed. Now, you got to understand what fully clothed means. Fully clothed is not limited to a criminal jurisdiction. They also possess civil jurisdiction in oversight of the government. They had it during the common law, and that was not and has not been changed. What has happened is this: prosecutors down through the years have concealed the civil function of grand juries and caused people to focus only on the criminal aspect of a grand jury. And people have forgotten that grand juries, back in the early days of the state of Georgia, county commissioners did not spend money, number one, and number two, they didn't raise taxes without the advice and consent of a grand jury. Grand juries ran, and I'll hush.
That sounds super, Paul. No need to hush. You're sounding great. I think the only interruption there was somebody's, probably Michael, saying here, agreeing with you. But yes, that in my mind, that's a major breakthrough. That the way we're talking about making trial jury a power and authority available to the grand jury, so the grand jury can proceed directly under due process of law to bring everything to a final judgment if they've got proof beyond a reasonable doubt their crime has been committed.
If I may,
Michael, yes.
The only problem we have is the fox is in the hen house.
Amen.
And the prosecutor and the legal system have total tyrannical control of the courts. And this is our problem. And how we can penetrate that, I'm not sure. But I know if we get numbers and make noise, that helps. And that's what we're trying to get Michael Flynn to sign. General Michael Flynn and his brother and other members of his family, at least here in the state of Florida. If we can get the family of Michael Flynn and himself to sign this and get the county commissioners to sign on to the Florida grand jury petition, then I think we might have a greater chance of getting this petition looked at. And what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the making the grand juries aware, that is the function of the prosecutor when he goes before the grand jury. Make them aware. Tell them what their civil power is. Show them in the statutory and the constitutional law and in the common law. And once they see that they have the authority, then they act. The prosecutor can make a suggestion. You can do this or you can do that. It is your decision. And they will make a decision. I'll shut up.
Well, you're welcome to talk as long as you like, Paul. You got an enchanting voice. It sounds like there's a lot of power and a lot of potential at our fingertips here, and I am enthused about our recent discussion about all of this. and the blatant criminality of the officials in Maricopa County there in Arizona, something serious needs to be done about it. And if we've got the combined power of a grand jury and a trial jury through our forum, I don't see why we can't just start barking orders directly at Maricopa County officials. I don't see why we got to go through another court to affirm what we're doing. I guess if there's no comments or questions further on that, should we go on, or does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
Just one brief, if I may.
Sure, Paul.
What I was working on, I didn't know about that situation in Maricopa County, but now that I do, the one thing that the Supreme Court of Law can do is issue a charge directly to the federal grand jury in Arizona to diligently inquire and true presentment make, number one, of the criminality involved and make that determination. And once that determination is made, apply the weight, the relevancy, and sufficiency of the evidence gleaned from that to their civil function. And if they find that as a matter of law and of fact in the criminal aspect that fraud was done, then in their civil capacity, they either order themselves or they order a federal judge to order that the entire presidential election cycle in the state of Arizona is null and void, of no legal force and effect whatsoever. And they can also order that the United States Congress adjust the Electoral College count accordingly. And I'll hush.
Okay. Well, I don't see why our court couldn't make those orders and judicial findings and things, but I guess that'll be another issue for another day there.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying that our court will direct their court to do stuff. I think our court should consider directing the sheriff to go in there and start locking people up is what we should be doing, Paul. My humble opinion.
Okay, I'll hush, not carry this on.
You open this can of worms. How about a response there? Why can't our court here, our grand jury, direct the sheriff to go arrest those treasonous conspirators?
You can. There's nothing to prevent you from doing it. You can demand through whatever function you establish to a sheriff in another county in another state to do his duty. You absolutely have that right to make that demand. However, because the lack of standing to issue orders of arrest that are enforceable under statutory law, under the positive law, the sheriff would not be obligated in his oath to enforce yours. Whereas if you order through a charge to the grand jury in Arizona and they respond and do what you instruct them to do, then they in turn will be the ones to issue the orders under the positive law that the sheriff must comply with. Either that or he goes to jail with everybody else.
Okay, well, thank you. If I might continue just a little bit, thank you for that concession there, Paul. Why the sheriff might be inclined to go start arresting those fraudulent election department officials He might be ready to go if we just give him color of legitimacy through our grand jury and trial jury, and at that point we can do it quick and efficient in the interests of justice without all the extra gobbledygook that you're throwing on the pile there.
Yes, as a matter of law, yes, it can be done that way, but it does require a compliant sheriff, one who holds his oath of office above everything else. But considering what they're pulling out there in Arizona and so far getting away with it, I don't have any faith in the sheriffs out there.
Well, right. I'll concede that it may be a problem, but I think in terms of strategy, rather than go through the months and months and months of trying to get a federal grand jury and judge to approve what we're trying to do, I think we should right away go ahead and start issuing orders to the sheriff. And then, if he entrenches, bring local support, bring the local people that are already outraged to go pounding on his front door and pressure him. Maybe then he'll change. And then if even that don't work, well, then maybe, okay, we'll go to the federal grand jury and the federal judge and try to do the long way around like what you're suggesting after the more quick and direct ways of either the sheriff directly or the local community and the sheriff working together to bring justice. That seems like the much more optimal strategy than doing the big, ugly, long, drawn-out thing of the federal grand jury and the federal judge first before we do anything. I yield.
Then I will respond. You are correct. You can do that, and I would absolutely wish you the best. A sheriff in Arizona receiving a properly drawn up legal document like that, yes, he should comply with the demands. The only reason I suggested the long way around, as you put it, is I don't have any faith in the sheriff doing his duty, and that would require putting him in a position where he did not have any discretion whatsoever. And I'll yield.
Thank you. Again, to follow up, and I admit that it's probably more than 50% that the sheriff would entrench against us, but we've got a lot of activists there, according to Michael, at the grassroots. And if we gave those activists color of lawful authority through our court decision, those activists might be able to use our color of authority to go ahead and bring about the big-time changes in the sheriff's office, or maybe even the elections office, or maybe the commissioners. At that point, once they got color of legitimacy from us, there's all kinds of things that local activists could do based upon our grand jury / trial jury orders to go ahead and bring forth justice in a much more quick and efficient manner. I would suggest. I yield.
Now that you've said that, you just made me think of something. And you would have a very salient point there, especially if the orders were directed to the unorganized militia under the Act. If there were chains of communications between your court and the unorganized militia, actually you would not need the sheriff at all. They could
Paul, I wish I could jump over there and kiss you.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
But now we've got to be careful, and we've got to consider, when you get an unorganized militia involved, that's risky. It's not illegal, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it is dangerous unless you have absolute control over the manpower that's involved.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, and at that point, if I might quickly, we could deputize those militia officers as town constable peace officers, and then at that point they wouldn't just be a random group of militia. They would be constitutionally lawful peace officers, and they'd be at the lower county level, which is more powerful, as posse comitatus. And peace officers both. There's all kinds of power under pure common law that we could bring in if we've got the process working through our militia there too. I yield.
Brother Shorty here.
Shorty, please jump in.
Well, the problem that I see is the same problem I have in Alabama. I tried to get the judge arrested, and I tried to get the sheriff arrested. And in this particular case, they kept pointing the guns at us until a point that they were actually cocking the guns. And then after cocking the guns, they sent stormtroopers down to this mother's house. And so I had her to pack her bags, come here, and then I moved her to a safe house. But the thing of it is that it's a long, drawn-out process, and it's hard to do when they have multiple guns. I yield.
Thank you, Shorty. Yeah, this is part of why I'm enthused about organizing our grassroots town constables. It only takes 10 households, 10% of a precinct, to have a town constable. And technically speaking, in Christianity, the church deacon is part of that decimal system, 10 households, and the church deacon has the authority of a peace officer and town constable too. And so at this point, Christian common law in Protestant Christian tradition can really come through and start empowering us a whole lot here. But we've kind of chewed on this a little bit, and we got both Gary and Shorty that would have presentations before us, and we can revisit this issue farther on down in our agenda. I think we've kind of indulged this pretty good. Unless there's any comments or questions real quick on these issues, I'd like to move on. Is there any objections?
One question.
Gary, yes.
Well, this Supreme Court of Law is based under common law, right?
Right.
Well, why don't you have a Supreme Court marshals for doing your paperwork or serving your warrants?
Because we got peace officer town constables, hundreds of them all across the USA. You can do the same thing. Marshal is not a common law term.
If I may.
Paul, yes, go ahead.
I would respectfully point out that the Supreme Court of Law is provided for in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. I yield.
Yeah. But did I answer your question okay, Gary?
Well, yeah, that's it. But, a lot of the courts have their own marshals, or you can call them sheriffs or bailiffs. But I use the term marshal to distinguish the difference. But I don't know. You can use your constables. That works. Okay.
Your distinction is correct as far as marshals go.
Yeah. So as long as this pertains to the court orders from the court, just like the international courts. So, all right, move on. I yield.
I'm kind of anal about technicality of terms. Kind of like Paul and I just achieved the breakthrough here by merging trial juries and grand juries. See, I guess we could merge the term marshal with town constable and peace officer. We could give them badges that have both wording on it or something. It doesn't really matter as long as our process is technically compliant with the rules of the common law, it don't really matter what wording we use, although if we get in head-to-head debates with the de factos, it would be good to have our wording accurate and surgically precise. I'd just be a little bit cautious about using improper wording when you know, the nature of our wording could make the difference eventually down the road in some situations between life and death. And we definitely want to have the most powerful positions on our chessboard rather than doing just what's fashionable. Because remember, there's been a lot of subversive propaganda instituted among us that's taken us away from our true common law way of doing things. And so a lot of people that are good-hearted but just haven't done their thorough homework are just following what is conventional wisdom, but that conventional wisdom is defective. So that's my only concern there, Gary. But I'm really delighted with the way things are coming together here. Again, even though we only got a small group, we're making major breakthroughs. This is really good. Again, is there any objections to moving on with the rest of our agenda? Anybody? None. Is there somebody there talking? I can only hear an echo in the background, sound like somebody's not really talking to us. I think I called earlier before for in our list of cases, David Scheid and Cynthia Moore. I don't think either of those are here. David Scheid or Cynthia Moore, are either of you here in the conference? Here none. And Lewis is not here for his Dred Scott versus Sanford case concerning institutionalized racism that he's alleging. I don't see Lewis or his representative here. Lewis, or anybody associated with that case? Hearing none. The massive court corruption in Nevada, Fed courts, and the county sheriff, Chris Cave of Nevada. Is Chris here? Or would Gary like to speak to that at all?
Well, I can speak if I know something, but I don't know anything on that. What it's doing.
Well, okay. Let's move on. The court case number 7 that Shorty of Missouri is in a court case. We've been talking on the phone about Shorty bringing a complaint before our court concerning child kidnapping. And directly after that, Gary will do your news item and breaking research. In accordance with our agenda, we've got court cases and potential court cases, and I think Shorty is next on our agenda for the court case that he's talking about bringing before our court here. Shorty, would you like to present a brief outline of the case that you're considering bringing before our court to us here? Shorty?
Sure. This is Shorty from St. Louis. We are the rebel rousers of the courts. And I love beating up on judges, lawyers, and prosecutors. In this case, it's out of Morgan County, Alabama. They kidnapped a girl. They gave it to the interveners. The interveners are the grandparent, the grandfather, and the step-grandmother. And then you have the grandmother from the mother-in-law. And so they took the kids. The state gave them custody of the kids, and they're floating back and forth. And my second initiation into this was to vacate all the judge's orders and recuse the judge. And so that was accomplished. And they gave us another judge, and so we got a new case number. And that case number is a party invite. So you're invited in to conversate with them. And so my first initiation in this with the new judge, I put 22 briefs before the court. The articles of fraud, the counterclaim, and 21 count indictment, along with other stuff, to educate them, to let the judge know that we're number one and they're number two. And so the judge is yet to respond to anything, and the clerk is saying they don't want to talk until May the 25th. And in the process, they kidnapped the kid. They took the kid and put the kid in custody of the grandparents. They trafficked him across state line into Tennessee out of Morgan County, Alabama. And so my client had to travel 2.5 hours one way. She was in a women's safe house, battered safe house. Then I moved her from there to another safe location, which was her daughter and stepson, or daughter and son-in-law. And she was there for a while. And so I started doing what they were doing by pointing guns at me, by pointing guns at them through my paperwork. And so my idea was to get the sheriff arrested and the judge arrested. And the judge is in Alabama, the sheriff is down in Tennessee. There's 2 arrest warrants for this wicked step grandparent. And so that's in Alabama. She's in Tennessee, but the sheriff in Tennessee is reluctant to talk to the sheriff in Alabama. And so that being the case, you can have an arrest warrant, but you don't have a pickup. And so I issued an extensive background check through 2 papers before the court that included known associates of both grandparents, which are pedophiles. And this was two columns of people that I asked the judge to do an extensive background check on. And so then we went and asked the judge to do an extensive background check on the father's side of the family. And the father is a drug dealer and a gun runner. And so all these people that we've listed are on the background registry. And we talked about getting an investigator, and I got one out of Indiana, one in North Carolina, and one in Georgia. And they did the checks for me, and they came up with all these people that had criminal backgrounds, that they're allowed, that this kid is allowed by the state to be a part of their life. And it's a horrible case. And right now, the mother is in an unknown safe house in another state right now. You know, once it got out of my hand, it went from 6 bubbles below the radar to 7. So right now, all I know is that she's supposedly safe. She has a live-in nurse's assistant job and a car to get around in and other things. Things are being taken care of, but she still doesn't have her kid. And no one will deal with the kidnapping charges. And so I don't know. You know, we got the 21 count indictment in front of them, and we got the articles of fraud upon the court in there, and then we have the counterclaim in there. But they don't want to hear anything until May, and by then they're going to permanently make this kidnapping a permanent thing. In other words, where the grandparents can continue to have it. They want to bill the mother for $400 a month to pay the grandparents while they are holding the kid hostage, and then they want her to pay $60 every time that there's a visitation. Then they had a secret ex parte meeting that says no more visitations. So we have not seen the kid since December. I yield.
Thank you, Shorty. Brother Paul, you got any comments? Gary, anybody?
Shorty, I have a question. Have you looked at a federal jurisdiction in this matter?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I haven't taken it to that level. Right now, I got a court date of May the 24th or 25th, you know.
Okay. Well, when they move a child across state, let me ask you this: is there any allegation of immoral conduct involving the children or the
Here's the petition. The petition was that the social worker lied and said the mother was living in a storage unit and was possibly on drugs. They came to the storage unit, the stormtroopers did, and beat her up and kidnapped her and put her in the back of a squad car, held her there, and they had the drug-sniffing dogs looking through her storage unit and tearing up everything. She was doing uploads on the internet of things that she had for sale, and so she was making her living by using that storage unit. And they did a drug test right then and there, and it was negative. And they did 2 other drug tests, surprise drug tests at the court, and they were negative. And they never produced any evidence to prove what days and what times and how many times the mother was living in the storage unit. But the mother put their landlord on the phone with the caseworker, and the caseworker is like, well, how do we know you're telling the truth? You could be any old Joe. And so they refused to hear the truth. The truth was that she had friends that she was staying with, and there were times that she allowed the grandmother from her side of the family to take the kid for a day or two. And so all of this is a bunch of hogwash. You know, what they tried to produce, they didn't produce, and they just said, we're going to take your kid, and that's it. Good. Have a nice day. And that's the way that it's been.
All right. Now, you see, Shorty, the taking of the drug screens, all 3 of them, were done apparently without a court order. And that is a violation, even though the results are completely exculpatory to her. In other words, they're to her benefit, but they were still...
Are you talking about a Fifth Amendment violation?
The 4th, illegal search and seizure. And that, under the Supreme Court decision, that was an actual injury to her. So she has standing now to bring a 1983 and 1988 action, not only against the officers, but against the counties. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there for your information.
Are you talking about trespass on the case?
I'm sorry. Am I talking what?
About trespass on the case? Common law?
Yeah, they
common law procedure.
On her person. I'm not talking about trespass upon the case in a court. I'm just saying that this whole court case could be transferred now that you've got illegal search and seizure. You've got standing now to take this case back into take it over into a United States District Court and get it out of the state courts. Where you corrupt sheriff.
Well, I'm looking for some ideas, you know.
Okay.
With the 21 count indictment, we got perjury on the 1st and 2nd degree, and perjury and false statements, inconsistent with false statements, 1st and 2nd degree, intent to defraud, forgery in the 1st and 2nd degree, false swearing, false reporting, making the false certification, official misconduct, malice prosecution. Go ahead.
Are the grandparents involved in any of that?
Well, see, you have the father. Okay, the father is the mother's father, which is the little girl's grandfather. The little girl is 5 years old. Her sister is 18 going on 19 with a 6-month-old. And then she's got a brother that's 20 years old. The mother is 40. And so the mother, her father, and her stepmother intervened in there and just went and kidnapped the kid. And they paid the state to comply with this. And she didn't know me until November, and the kidnapping happened back in July. And so
they carried the child across the state line.
Well, they do. They did. They live in Tennessee, but they came to Alabama, which is about a 40 to 50 minute drive from where they live.
Okay.
Now, I've asked the judge to do an extensive background check based on my investigators' report back to me, which gave me 2 columns of pedophiles and their names and their addresses, and I ordered the judge to do an extensive background check on it. And then I ordered the judge to do extensive background check upon 1 column of people that are affiliated to the father. This is her ex. And so between those 2 lists and the check, if my investigators can find it within, 35 to 45 minutes of all these people, then the state can do the same. And if the child's in danger because of that background investigation, they need to step in there and allow the order. See, I issued an order to the sheriff in Tennessee to do a pickup. I had a pickup order signed by the mother with the common law courts of record seal up on there. And that's an official document from me to them. And they need to cooperate, but they don't want to cooperate. And so I came after them and was trying to put together an arrest warrant for them. But to get a sheriff to cooperate to arrest another sheriff and a judge is very hard to do in these days sometimes.
Well, yeah, it may be, but it's not for the feds. And
you're right. The feds are probably the way to go. So if you can connect with Charles after the program and get my number, then you're welcome to communicate with me, and I'll put you on the team as one of the team members there with the Seeking Justice Resource Community.
God bless you, young man. I appreciate the offer, but right now, my cup literally runneth over, and when will be until probably week after next. But I will try to get in touch with you about that.
Oh, okay. Well, when and if you do, then we'll work together, because I'm easy to get along with. You know what I mean? I got an understanding of, I've been studying common law, courts of record, and organic law for 21 years.
Okay, good.
And so I got a real good handle on it. I don't present anything to the court except for orders.
Yes, sir.
Everything I put in there is an order. It's not a motion.
Understood.
It's a notice of a motion plus the order. In other words, notice motion means I want to be heard.
Yep.
Can I jump in there a little bit, fellas? Thank you. I'd like to paint a little bit broader picture of Shorty. He's kind of new to our group. Excuse me. Shorty has done some studying under one of the most advanced common law scholars in the nation, a fella out of Southern California, I believe. Shorty, what was that guy's name?
Bill Thornton.
Bill Thornton, yes. Bill Thornton has a very powerful... Pardon me?
Ed Riviera.
Well, Bill Thornton's the more powerful of the two, I do believe. And you've studied diligently under Mr. Thornton's methodology, and that's very powerful methodology. And I do believe you're probably running them up a tree with your paperwork there. Shorty. But like I think you're coming to realize, it all gets down to enforcement, and the best paperwork in the world won't do anything when the bad guys circle the wagons and decide that you ain't getting through no matter what kind of cutting-edge paperwork you throw at them. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. But like I say, it's hard to be humble when you own a 50 caliber.
Well, but your paperwork ain't 50 caliber. 50 caliber is machinery, and your paperwork ain't machinery. And it'd be advisable to not talk in terms of those enforcement issues when we're trying to avoid getting thrown in jail. I would dare suggest, because we're just paperwork. We're not enforcing anything yet. We'll let them know real clear when we're talking about bringing out the 50 calibers. But Gary Bergman has been waiting patiently. He's got a real interesting presentation that I'd like for him to have some time left before the conclusion of our 2-hour meeting here. Is there anything else, Shorty, that you'd like to add on presenting your case before our court here?
Well, the thing of it is that the bottom line to everything that I'm doing out of Morgan County happens to be under mob action. And I put together a page called Mob Action Exposed CPS Cases.
Take it slow. I thought I heard that word before, and the word before action, it sounds like mob. Is that what you're saying, or can you explain it better?
Yeah, it's mob, M-O-B, action. Mob Action Exposed.
Oh, you're exposing the mob. You're not a mob yourself, right?
Oh, no.
Okay, well, I would think the first 3 times I heard you say it there, it sounded like you're labeling yourself as a mob, and I would dare suggest that you need to do that word exposed way more frequently to make it idiot-proof for people that you're not claiming to be a mob here.
No.
We got it.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch up before we go ahead and proceed to our next agenda item with Gary Bergman here making his presentation?
Well, just keep this case. Averly Mays is the 5-year-old. Averly Mays. Keep her in prayer. That's all we can do at this point.
That's her name, Heverly Mays?
Averly, Averlie. Averly Mays.
Can you spell the last name?
M-A-Z-E.
Okay. Thank you, Shorty. Thank you very much, and we will pray for the victimized woman that you're working with also. But proceeding on with our agenda here. We're next converting to news items and breaking research in agenda item 2E here. And at this point, Gary, if you're still with us patiently, Gary, thank you. You've got some breaking research concerning emergency declarations and federal government's so-called civil war. Gary, would you like to go ahead and share your breaking research with our group here?
Well, before I do that, I'd like to ask Shorty one question.
Sure.
Okay.
Is your client Native American?
No.
Okay. That's all I need to know. All right.
She's English.
I'm sorry?
She's English.
Oh, okay. Because I have a friend that fought the federal cases on child protective services out of New Mexico and Texas. Took him 3 years and he won. But anyway, I've had this book here. It's called The Government's War Powers Under the Constitution of the United States, and analysts of the government's legal powers to fight subversion, treason, and civil war. It was written by William Whitney, who was a special counselor of the War Department in November of 1862, and later its solicitor in February of 1863. So he was under Lincoln. But I've been reading this thing last few years. I only got through about a third of it, and I had to go to other stuff. So I decided it's time to go back to it. And I sent out an email. What I'm doing now, I'm kind of, when I get to a part I think it's worthwhile, I write up a little email and send it out like an editorial. And what I did was the de facto war powers under the constitutions of the United States corporations. Legal powers to fight subversion, treason, and civil war. Military government under martial law. Any section of this country, confederation, may be subjected to military government, and the rights of citizens of state republics in those districts are subject to martial law. No state republic citizen, whether loyal or rebel, guaranteed to him in the Constitution by reason of his subjection to martial law, because martial law, when enforced, is constitutional law. The people, through their lawfully chosen commander-in-chief, have the constitutional right to seize and hold the territory of a belligerent enemy and to govern it by martial law, thereby suspending the local government of the place and all rights which rebels might have had as state republic citizens of the States of America united within the Confederation. When martial law is enforced, the laws of war are the laws which the Constitution expressly authorizes and requires to be enforced. The Constitution, when it calls into action martial law, for the time changes civil rights, not natural rights, are rights which a state republic citizen would be entitled to in peace, because the rights of person in one of these cases are totally incompatible with the obligations of persons in the other. Peace and war cannot exist together. The laws of peace and of war cannot operate together. The rights of procedures of peaceful times are incompatible with those of war. In a state of war, the rules of martial law and the consequent modifications of the rights, duties, and obligations of state republics, citizens, private and public, are not authorized strictly under the Constitution. The States of America, united within the Confederation of State Republics, are obligated to guarantee to each state a republican form of government. That republican form of government having been overthrown by the United States of America Incorporated, a British corporation, by force, the occupied country must take such steps, military and civil, as may tend to restore it to the loyal state republic citizens, if there be any. And if there be no persons who will submit to the Constitution of the States of America Incorporated and the rules, codes, and statutes of that corporation, it is their duty to hold that state republic by corporate military power and under corporate military rule until loyal citizens shall appear there in sufficient numbers to entitle them to receive back in their own hands the local corporate government. The rights of war and the rights of peace cannot coexist. One must yield to the other. Martial law and constitutional law cannot operate at the same time and place upon the same subject matter. There are no rights of war, only God-given natural rights within the confines of our Confederation of State Republics. That applies to state republic citizens. To violate the rights of others by whatever name it may be designated, whether it is called a constitution or league or conspiracy or domestic institution, is no justification under the law of nations for illegal or immoral acts. In the great tribunal of nations, there is a higher law than that which has been framed by either one of them. However scarce to each its own particular laws and constitutional government may be. But while this supreme law of our Creator is in full force and is binding in all countries, softening the asperities of war and guarding the rights of neutrals, it is not conceded that the corporation de facto government of the United States of America Incorporated, in a war of aggression against what were once members of the States of America, a confederation of independent sovereign state republics, now the Confederate States of America, they owe no allegiance to the United States of America Incorporated, but to the confederation formed under the Articles of Freedom. And that's kind of what I got there. The rest is, first part is a lot about slavery. But as I go through that, when I think there's something that we need to know, I'll talk about it.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, good.
Yeah, thank you. What was the title of the book again?
The government's war powers under the Constitution of the United States.
Got it. Thank you.
I think I got it at Amazon, I believe.
Thank you.
That sounds like a good book. I noticed you said once the people reassemble in sufficient numbers, they can take the country back, something like that. Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah. It says once they have enough citizens, they have the right to take back the control of the government and the courts.
Is there any clue what that sufficient number might be?
Well, they had to swear allegiance to that Constitution, which I don't think there would be. I mean, I don't think we can.
Do you have a number?
Pardon?
Do you have a number of people? They said sufficient number.
Oh, they didn't say there was no numbers. No. No, they didn't.
Well,
they didn't
I would dare suggest that the Seventh Amendment authority of a trial jury of 12 would be the sufficient number to take the country back.
Well, yeah.
That's just my thought, but that Seventh Amendment provision is extremely powerful, and if a common law jury tried the fact that the military government is hereby demolished, and the people are now in charge directly under this Supreme Court of Law trial jury, Seventh Amendment compliant, and we'll take control from here on out. Thank you very much. All you military judges, please step down. That's how I visualize defusing the problem that your excellent research is presenting here.
The only thing they put down here was sufficient numbers.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they stated.
Well, they left it blank because the implication is, it must be 50,000 or 1 million or some big number. But I think, technically speaking, in light of the Seventh Amendment, 12 would be a sufficient number to take the country back.
I think that's the only document or amendment that has a number of people.
Yeah. Well, that's just a radical theory, but that's part of where I'm going with the whole Supreme Court of Law project. And people don't realize how real that emergency war powers military jurisdiction is in our current court system. And I want to thank you, Gary, for bringing that out and presenting it to us here.
You're welcome.
Is there any other comments or questions on Gary's research here from anybody?
Well, it wasn't much, but I'll get more as I go along here.
All right. Well, did you have more, Gary, or what are you thinking?
No, that's about all I got right now. It was worthwhile talking because the rest of it in the first chapter kind of hit on slavery a lot, and we don't need to talk about that because we're long past that. Yeah,
we're all slaves now.
and people from the South know that we outnumbered. You know, we had our own colored troops by 4 times as many as the North, and we had our own colored officers, and there was 6 colored soldiers that had the Medal of Honor from the Confederacy. So I mean, it's not something to debate about.
Yeah, it might be good to put you in contact with Lewis Hammond, that is our Black Patriot supporter here and frequent conference attendee. He's frequently talking about how terrible the racism problem is here in America, and I think he's overreacting a little bit on some of those issues, And if you've got some insight in those areas, I'm hoping to bring enough sharp minds and good hearts together to kind of help him be a little bit more reasonable about white people trying to work together with black people to take the country back from the real slave masters here.
I mean, we've all look. Georgia was settled with slaves. You know, we had indentured servants from England. We had Native American slaves. I mean, of course, we had slaves too, but it was just a way of life at that time. It was going out. It was fading out. Slavery was, but it still exists today, though, in the Arab countries. Well,
14th Amendment jurisdiction is reducing us all to slaves.
Yeah, and I don't know if he knows that the slaves in the South were freed. I mean, at one time only, and Lincoln had no right to do that. So. Yeah,
there's problems.
And I don't know if he knows about that the parade in Richmond before Lincoln decided to free the slaves. There was a big parade in Richmond, Virginia, of the colored troops, and all the white folks are coming out and praising their their soldiers and officers, and the northern papers say, well, why are we fighting the South when they got their own colored units fighting for them? So, I mean, the truth has never really been told.
Yeah, so, we've been lied to.
That's right. The victor controls the history.
Yeah. All right. I do have a few wind-up issues I'd like to do. I think we'll shut down near the 2-hour mark here, keep it short. Michael dropped off again. He sent me a text. He's got another conference that he's felt obligated to participate in here. So let me finish with a few things, and we'll try to conclude at the top of the hour here, unless there's objection. I'd like to briefly explain that our last Saturday conference, where we talked with the Chipper fella, I'd like to review that issue that I think it was yourself, Gary, that voiced to me that you dropped off of the conference because you just didn't want to listen into or indulge Chipper with his goofiness any further, and you just got bored and you decided to hang up. I wanted to give a little bit more explanation here. I imagine a lot of people were frustrated with Mr. Chipper's metaphysical mumbo-jumbo there, and I just wanted to say that we needed to give him opportunity to appear and defend his position, and that's why we indulged him at such length. And I was kind of personally ready to cut him off earlier, but Lewis and others asked for us to indulge him even further, and so we indulged him even further and gave him even more rope, and he hung himself. I think most of us agreed that he was not a qualified elector, and that he was advocating secret military tribunals, executing people in secret, and that's not part of what our patriot community is all about. That if we're going to save America, we got to reject that kind of crap firmly and decisively. I just wanted to make the record real clear in a summary that is why we indulged him there a little bit, Gary, was because we need to give him plenty of opportunity to try to come up with some plausible explanation for what he was doing, or perhaps repent of his stupidity, or so that we can welcome him back in amongst us. But he was not repentant. He was arrogant, and he continued on defending his basic position of the larger context of where he was advocating secret military tribunals, secretly executing people. And so after plenty of indulgence there, we arrived at our conclusion that Chipper was firmly not part of our group, and I believe it's the sense of our court being fully apprised in the premises that Mr. Superfella is not maintaining minimal standards necessary to be recognized as a qualified elector. So, comments or questions on that real quickly as we move along to our only other agenda item? Anybody? Hearing none. To E3, I'm considering both of our most recent conferences here has been real small in number, and Michael has got another conference that he even dropped off because our conference is apparently not of as high a priority as his other conference. And so I'm considering, instead of having a conference once a week, I'm considering ratcheting back to having our conferences once every other week, once a fortnight. And that will mean, with the polarity between our right-wing and our left-wing conferences, that we'll only be having one right-wing conference per month and one left-wing conference in that same month. I'm seriously considering that. I've got, as a footnote there, I'm not really producing a whole lot of profound work product that is making our situation a whole lot better, and I've got some ideas that I think can do some traction to make the country better, to do profound fundamental changes. And if I can throttle back on how frequently I'm doing the conferences here, I can produce some better paperwork and focus more importantly in other areas. And and that's why, part of why I'm considering throttling back to our conferences only once every other week here. And at that point, I'd like to open the discussion. Well, one other footnote is we can do conferences impromptu. If people want to call me and say, hey, I've got something real important, I think we should hold a special conference here. We can do that on occasion. But unless there's real serious objection from anybody in attendance, I'm going to reschedule so that we're cutting our frequency of our conferences basically in half here. And at that point, comments or questions on that? Anybody?
I think that would be a commendable objective, young man.
Thank you, Paul. I need some breathing room, and you hear me jabbering here and trying to keep it together, and our numbers are low because, well, there's lots of different reasons. I don't blame people, but I need to be. I think that I've got some really valuable insights that can produce some really big changes here, and if I'm not doing these conferences so frequently, I got more time and energy to devote to what is really going to make some big changes for our American nation here. And so I appreciate immensely your comments there, Paul. Thank you.
Okay.
Comments or questions? Anybody else there?
No, looking good, Chuck.
All right. And just a little secret gem here, all you guys. When I only use that word Charles when I'm in formal settings and confronting de factos, because I don't like them to. I like to keep them on formal footing and at arm's length. But amongst people that I have a degree of trust here, you can refer to me as Chuck once in a while if you feel like it. Okay, we don't got to be formal, ritzy titsy like that all the time. Okay. You can throw a Chuck out there once in a while if you feel like giving me a pat on the head or a slap on the back once in a while as a friend. That's just a secret between us. Don't go passing that around too much, okay? I don't want the de factos to get wind of that. You're going to really piss me off if those de factos start referring to me as Chuck. I don't like it that way. But comments or questions on anything here before we conclude our conference here for the evening? Anybody?
Just a praise report when they took 31 judges down in St. Louis County, you know. It's just happened recently. I got a dispatch on it. Should be up on my page. But, hey, you know, let's keep plugging it.
Wait. Before you get, you're saying 31 judges got removed from office somewhere recently, Shorty? This isn't like the old Gaylord case in Chicago back in the 70s. This is something recent, Shorty? Expand, please.
Within the last week, I think it is. I do have a post on my page here, you know, Justice Mercy page on Facebook.
Okay, can you send me a web link to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can pass it around.
Okay, how many judges again, and what county was it?
St. Louis County.
Wow.
In Missouri?
31 judges, yeah.
In St. Louis, Missouri County. And 31 judges? Is that right?
Yes. Let me see if I can.
Big. That is real big, Shorty. Isn't that big, Paul?
Great.
Let's see here.
5.
Let me see if I can pull it up again.
You know it, Charles?
Yeah.
Great Lord.
Go ahead, Paul.
25 judges and 52 lawyers.
Yeah, that Gaylord case was great, but this sounds like it might be even bigger than the Gaylord case.
Well, it could be. Lawyers.
It says 31 Missouri judges rescued themselves from a lawsuit alleging family court guardian and psychologist orchestrated money-making scheme.
Well, okay,
it says caught concluding leaked video reveals family court guardians conspiring to DOX journalists or exposing them.
Shorty, it sounds like the judges only recused themselves. It don't sound like they've been removed from office.
They may have resigned from office.
How about we get Shorty? Did they just recuse themselves, or they left office, Shorty?
Well, let me get you the dispatch on it, and then I'll send it to you in an email.
Okay. Yeah.
Then that way you can.
I'm apprehensive that ain't near as big as the Gaylord case. If they just recuse themselves from a case, that ain't near as significant as Gaylord. Those judges got thrown in jail and forcibly removed from office. That was much bigger progress. But this sounds like a small progress anyway. I'll be glad to look at whatever you can send me there, Shorty.
Okay. Should have a dispatch from you from your. Okay, well, I'll open up my other browser and send you a copy.
We don't got to do that all while we're on the phone here. We're trying to conclude up the conference, but I will be looking forward to when you can send me the web links here, Shorty.
Okay. It's coming your way shortly, okay?
All right, thank you, Shorty. Is there any other concluding comments or questions before we conclude our conference here, brothers and sisters? Hearing none. This is the 8th of March, 2021. I am Charles Stewart in Coleman, Texas, and hereby is adjourned this session and conference of the Supreme Court of Law for the United States of America. Praise God, y'all. I guess we'll see you again next time.
Okay.
All right. Good night. God be with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.